Oi, what is going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in. You know when the videos start that I'm ready. You know that Smooth Jimmy's ready. You know what that means. It means it's time for another episode of Balls Deep Breakdowns with your host, Uncle Weezy. Of course, that's me. Today, we are going to be breaking down UFC Vegas 30 in a fight that I am very excited for. It is going to be the Jai Herbert, the Black Country Banger, coming up against Renato Moicano here in what I am going to call a striker versus grappler matchup, even though Renato Moicano, it's not fair to just call him a grappler. He is a very well-rounded mixed martial artist. This is going to be a really good one to break down, so let's get into the numbers. Let's start seeing if we can find an edge in this fight and start, like we always do, with the tail of the tape. Renato Moicano, the younger fighter here. Who would have thunk it? The guy with one UFC fight in Jai Herbert is 33 years old, while Renato Moicano is 32. This fight will be taking place at lightweight. Renato Moicano, most of his career has taken place at featherweight, so this will be his third fight at lightweight. Herbert will be the taller man here at 6'1" compared to 5'11" for Moicano, and we see a 5-inch reach advantage here on the feet for Jai Herbert. Not to be ignored, not to be disrespected. It is one of those things that when you've got a reach advantage in a division like this, usually more times than not, the person with the reach advantage wins. It is a statistical thing that we do need to be aware of. We see that Renato fighting out a constrictor team. Also, he trains some at American Top Team, while Jai Herbert, Team Renegade BJJ. And I believe that Team Renegade is where Tom Breeze also trains. So he trains with in the same camp with Tom Breeze. Renato Moicano, Brazilian, and Herbert from England. So let's move on to the pro experience here. We see that Moicano has got 19 professional fights compared to 12 for Herbert. 14-4-1 record for Moicano, a 10-2 record for Herbert. We have got almost a over 25-minute total cage time advantage. But for guys that have had, that are in their 30s, to have only about 123 or 95 and a half minutes of cage time is not that much. Not a lot of tread on either of these guys' tires. We see an average fight time for Herbert of 8 minutes and an average fight time of 6.47 minutes for Renato Moicano, and that's for the whole career. And we can also see down here that both of these guys, have finished their fights. The under hits probably more times than not in these guys' fights. A 5-year advantage in the length of career for Moicano. So 7 more fights in 5 more years. Moicano's been doing this probably since he was 21 or 20, while Jai Herbert seems to have started his mixed martial arts career in his mid to late 20s, around 25 or 26 or 27. So, interesting stuff there with the experience. We got Moicano with an experience advantage. We got Herbert with a little bit of a size advantage and a reach advantage at this point. Let's look at the finish stats. And we look at the overall finish stats here. Renato Moicano has finished 7 of his 14 professional wins by sub, and he has never knocked anybody out. While Jai Herbert has finished 1 of his 10 wins by submission, 8 of his 10 wins by knockout for a 90% career finishing rate. That is really impressive. Let's see here. If we look at how these guys get finished, this is also something that is very interesting. It's something that we have to be aware of in this fight. Both of these guys have been finished in 100% of their losses. So Moicano has 4 career losses, 3 of them coming by knockout, 1 coming by submission, and then we have in Herbert's losses, he lost to Francisco Trinaldo and also Reese McKee in Cage Warriors by knockout. So these guys have been finished in all of their losses. We see an average fight time here of 8.23 minutes for Moicano, 11.5 for Herbert, and we see the average fight time here of 8 minutes for Herbert, 6.5 for their entire mixed martial arts career, not the UFC. All this screams that under. This screams this is a great fight to bet the under on. Let's zoom in a little bit more here, because now we're going to go over to the striking stats, get a little bit more in depth about what I'm calling a striker versus grappler matchup here. So let's look at the striking stats. Keeping in mind that Jai Herbert only has one UFC fight, so we can't really read too much into the statistics on that side. However, we do have a great sample size here for Moicano, so let's get into it. 5.4 significant strikes landed per minute out of 11.62 offered. That is very high volume. This guy stays busy. He throws a lot of strikes. 46% striking accuracy. Definitely not spectacular, not horrible either, but right in the meaty part of the curve. If we look at knockdowns per total significant strikes landed, Renato Moicano was not shown a ton of power in the UFC, averaging just 0.18 knockdowns per 15 minutes. We do see that Jai Herbert, 30% striking accuracy in his one fight in the UFC was against Francisco Trinaldo. He was 21 for 70, 1.83 landed, 6.09 offered. So a much lower volume fight with Trinaldo, but there's also a reason for that, and that's because if we look at the control time for and the control time against, we see that less than half of this fight took place, and as a matter of fact, just a little over 40% of this fight took place in the center of the cage. So not much time for there to be a lot of strikes landed per minute. However, he knocked him down once, so that knockdown per total significant strikes landed in a very small sample size is 4.76%, but that does show us that Jai Herbert has power. It's not like he knocked down some tomato can. It was Francisco Trinaldo that he did that to, a veteran who's super tough, and he came out in the second round of that fight and landed a straight right down the pipe, which is Jai Herbert's best striking weapon, in my opinion, is that 1-2 where he has a very quick jab, and when he throws that jab, oftentimes that right comes right down the pipe behind the jab, and it is lightning fast. It is piston-like, straight to the target. There's no wasted movement in it, and if he hits you with it, you most likely go down. Also, I've seen him knock out, I believe it was Cain Carrizosa that he knocked out with a knee in the clinch up against the fence that came straight up the middle, caught him right on the knee, or caught him right on the chin, slept him completely. So Herbert just doesn't have that 1-2 when it comes to the striking. He definitely has some other weapons. He has elbows, he has knees, he does have kicks, he uses head kicks as well. So he does have a nice variety of strikes, but those knees of his up the middle and that 1-2 straight down the middle, in my opinion, are his best offensive weapons. And Moicano's striking is not to be ignored. We can see a nice little thing here in the stats for Moicano where he's landing 5.4 strikes per minute, but only absorbing 3.74. And let's remember something here. This is a guy who's been knocked out 3 times in the UFC. Jose Aldo knocked him out. Fisayev knocked him out. Chan Sung Jung knocked him out. So he has really absorbed a lot of strikes in certain fights, and still in these 10 fights that he still has quite a very nice significant strike difference and significant strike ratio in comparison from his offense to his defense. So as we look back at these numbers here, we see a 48% striking defense and also some chinniness on Herbert's side as he got knocked down. But look at that, almost a 66% striking defense for Moicano. That's very good, and it's a statistic that we want to see. Now that he's up at 155, he did get knocked out by Fisayev up there, and Herbert does have great power, don't get me wrong, but Herbert's striking is not on the level of Fisayev's, and if you go back and you watch the Moicano-Fisayev fight, until Fisayev landed that big right hand that slept Moicano, it was a pretty even striking battle, and Moicano looked good up at 155. He looked very crisp, and his debut at 155 was against Damir Hadzovic, and he immediately finished him. So yes, while Moicano has been chinny and he's been knocked down 0.36 times per 15 minutes, he's absorbed 3 knockdowns in his I guess it's only 2. He's only absorbed 2 knockdowns, Moicano. One against Jung and one against Fisayev. I believe Aldo finished him on the feet. So actually, according to the statistics, in a very small sample size, Herbert is actually chinnier than Moicano has, because we remember the 3 knockout losses by Moicano, but there have been 10 fights. So he's had a lot of fights where he's fought bangers, like Jeremy Stevens, like Calvin Kattar, like Zubaira Tukhugov, and he didn't get knocked down by any of them. He didn't get finished by any of them. So we have to take into account Moicano's whole body of work. But let's move on to the grappling statistics here, because this is very important. Very important, these grappling statistics, because in my opinion, this is a fairly close striking battle. Moicano has faced his share of excellent, top-notch, top of the food chain UFC former title holders, former title challengers. He's fought the top of the mountain. Herbert has knocked out a lot of good fighters, but none on the level of Renato Moicano. This is a big step up in competition, and in my opinion, it'll actually be close on the feet. But where it really is not close at all is on the ground. Renato Moicano is a world-class grappler. We talked about it, Big Brady and I, on Stat Diggers on Pub Sports Radio on Sunday night. We talked about Moicano doesn't really go to his grappling very much, which is discouraging, because his grappling is excellent. It's elite. And if he gets Herbert to the ground, mounts him, or gets his back, the fight's going to be over immediately. He will finish him. But the troubling thing that I was talking about on Stat Diggers is, here we got Moicano with 10 UFC fights, only 13 takedown attempts. That's only 1.3 takedown attempts per fight. But, however, he has gotten 7 of them. So when he goes for takedowns, he gets them at a 53.85% clip. He averages 1.28 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he only gets 6% control time. Over 90% of Moicano's fights are taking place in the center of the cage as a boxing match. And if that's the case, and the fight takes place that way, and you believe it'll take place that way, you're getting huge plus odds on Herbert, and this is probably at best a 50-50 matchup if it stays standing, because Jai Herbert is probably on Moicano's level with the striking. If you watch the footage on this guy, you have to go and watch the tape on Jai, not just the Trinaldo fight, but in all of his Cage Warriors fights. Dude, that guy's right hand is so good, and we know that Moicano is chinny. He's been dropped before. If Jai lands that 1-2 on him, or if he lands one of those knees up the middle, he's just as dangerous as Moicano on the feet. What I'm worried about is, Herbert being controlled as easily as he was by Trinaldo here at 28.7%. That's too much. If Moicano controls Herbert 30% of this fight, he's gonna submit Herbert. He's plain and simple. So only 13 takedown attempts at a 53% clip. Not enough offensive grappling for me. But let's dive even deeper into the stats. And we usually go balls deep, but let's go balls deeper. Why don't we? Because we want to look at these guys that he's been fighting, right? And so Tom Ninamaki, we can see right here, he got this win. Let me zoom out here a little bit. Let's go down to it's a little too small. Hopefully you guys can see this, but Tom Ninamaki, he got 1 takedown, Moicano did, against Ninamaki, and 1 by sub, okay? And then we don't see any takedown attempts in the next fight against Tukhugov. He got 2 out of 5 takedown attempts in a split decision victory against Jeremy Stevens. He got 2 out of 2 takedown attempts against Brian Ortega in a 3rd round submission loss. He got caught in Ortega's guillotine. No shame in that. Ortega is, obviously elite for the featherweight division. He'll be fighting for the title next. Calvin Kattar, he didn't no takedown attempts against Calvin Kattar, and still got a unanimous decision win in a striking battle where there was only 1 second of control time. So when I'm saying that, Moicano can hang on the feet with Herbert, if you can hang on the feet with Calvin Kattar for 3 rounds and beat him in a unanimous decision and outstrike him 116-41, then he can beat Jai Herbert on the feet. I just worry about Moicano's chin. Swanson, he got 1 takedown and then he got a submission victory. So that's the second fight. Ninamaki, Swanson, 2 takedowns, 2 submission victories. And then the third one, the Hadzovich fight, 1 takedown, 1 submission victory. So not only does Renato Moicano only have 7 takedowns in the UFC, but what's great about that is in those 7 takedowns, he's got 3 submission victories. So just in the 10 fight sample size that we have from Moicano, which is a big fat sample size, if he gets a takedown, he's got a 43% chance to win the fight by submission inside the distance. Think about that. Herbert, terrible takedown defense. And I want to bring up one other thing here. In the Ninamaki fight, second round, as soon as he got the takedown, he got the sub. Only 31 seconds of control time out of 510. So as soon as he got the takedown, he got the sub. Against Hadzovich, 44 seconds that fight was, and he had 25 seconds of control time. And I watched that fight back with exactly 19 seconds gone in the first round. He shot a takedown on Hadzovich, who has terrible takedown defense. We talked about that on Stat Diggers on Sunday night as well, and immediately got his back and choked him out. What I'm talking around a lot is, and what I'm saying is that even though Moicano's not attempting a lot of takedowns, the reason he hasn't attempted a lot of takedowns is he's fought a lot of guys with elite takedown defense. Here on UFC Stats, we can see Moicano's the guys that he's fought. Fasayev, 100% takedown defense. So you don't even want to try to take him down. Chan Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie, 77% takedown defense. Jose Aldo, 91% takedown defense. These are Moicano's opponents, okay? Cub Swanson, he took him down and immediately submitted him. Cub Swanson, 60% takedown defense. Let's go to Tom Ninamaki. Excuse me, I need to cough just for a second. I'm back. Tom Ninamaki, 33% takedown defense. Ass. What did he do? He took him down, immediately subbed him. Another submission win. Cub Swanson, right? 60% takedown defense. Not good. And Moicano was able to take him down and submit him. So, and then you look at guys like Stevens, who has like a 66% takedown defense. I believe Tukugov is 100%. Yeah, 100% takedown defense for Tukugov. So, it's not entirely surprising that we see that Moicano has only attempted 13 takedown attempts. And it might be easy just to look at the numbers, but I think when we go balls deep into the numbers, we realize in order for Moicano to win this fight, it only takes 1 takedown attempt. He's got 3 submission victories in the UFC, and in each of those 3 submission victories, he had just 1 takedown. And each of those 3 guys, Cub Swanson, Tom Ninamaki, and Hadzovich, all 3 guys with terrible takedown defense. Add Jai Herbert as the 4th guy on that list with terrible takedown defense. I predict that this guy, Moicano, is going to go in there, exploit Herbert's terrible takedown defense, get him to the ground, get his back, and get his 5th career victory by rear naked choke. Let's look at the strength of schedule. 1 fight for Jai Herbert against Francisco Trinaldo, a 2.14 ratio. Renato Moicano in his 10 fights is averaging fighting an experienced fighter with 10.6 total fights and a 6.3 and 4.3 record. So Moicano, this is a huge step down for him because he's fighting a guy that really only has, at this point, 12 professional fights. and only has one of them at the UFC level, and he lost that fight. So, the strength of schedule definitely goes to Moicano here. We see him beating guys in the UFC that have an average record of 6.83 wins and 5.33 losses, 12.17 total fights. Jai Herbert, is worse than that, so he's beating much better competition than Herbert. And we see, Herbert lost to, Trinaldo, so it's the 2.14 loss ratio. So his only loss in the UFC is what you would call a good one. So we're not going to say that Moicano is that much better than Francisco Trinaldo, who's had a 23 fight career in the UFC. Trinaldo's a stud. So ratio. The average record of the guy that beats Moicano has 5.5 wins and 2.75 losses, 8.25 fights with a 2 ratio. So Moicano really only loses to the best, and we can see it right here in the last 5, where we've got names like Fisayev, the Korean Zombie, former champion Aldo, title challenger Swanson, title challenger Korean Zombie. So he's 2-3 in his last 5, but he's fighting studs. He's fighting future title contenders, and a guy like Fisayev, former title holders like Aldo, former title contenders like Chan Sung Jung. While we see a loss to Francisco Trinaldo for Jai Herbert, and we see wins against guys like Cain Carrizosa, Jack Grant, Steve O'Keefe, Joe McColgan. One thing I want to bring up is that Jack Grant in the first round took Herbert's back, stayed there for 2 minutes. Jack Grant in the second round took Jai Herbert down and then mounted him. If Renato gets Herbert's back or mounts him, the fight's over. So, everything that I've seen in the tape and a lot of things that I see in the numbers, especially when we go balls deep into the numbers, is really leaning Moicano here. So I am on the Moicano side. After really going deep into the numbers, I'm a lot heavier into the Moicano side. But let's look at the odds here, see what we can find. We've got Moicano is a minus 235 favorite, Jai Herbert plus 180 dog. We see Moicano by submission plus 195. I like that. Moicano by points plus 230. Moicano by TKO plus 800. Jai Herbert to win by decision plus 500. Jai Herbert by KO, TKO plus 380. I think if Herbert wins this fight, I think Moicano can easily take him down. So I really kind of think that it'll be easy for Moicano to win rounds when he does use his wrestling, and I think he will go to his wrestling. I think he realizes here, like he realized in the Hadzovic fight, hey, I'm way better than this guy on the ground, so why not just take him down? And Moicano did show that fight IQ against Hadzovic, a guy with terrible takedown defense. He shot a takedown 18 seconds into that fight and had a win less than a minute into the fight. I see this taking place the same way. I think Jai Herbert's only path to victory is a KO, where he gets him with that knee up the middle, or he catches him with that 1-2. If Moicano doesn't, if Moicano is too lazy and boxes with him for too long, I could see that happening. But I love the Moicano inside the distance, plus 125 Moicano inside the distance. You can bet that, or you can just bet the money line if you like Moicano money line. And if you want to hedge, I think a nice little hedge is to bet a little bit on Herbert by knockout, and maybe you can cover your exposure, and it'll limit your profit a little, of course, because that's what hedging does. It lowers your downside, but it also limits your upside. But I think if you want to hedge this bet, you can do a hedge on Herbert by knockout. We see Moicano's experience here. He's been fighting guys way better than Jai Herbert basically since the Ninamaki fight. After the Ninamaki fight, he's getting Tukugov, who's 18-3. Jeremy Stevens, who has 33 UFC fights. Brian Ortega, who's fighting for the championship next at 145. Calvin Kattar, who's fought, basically everybody. Cub Swanson, who's fought basically everybody. Former champion Aldo, former title challenger Chan Sung Jung. And when he got that step down in Hadzovic, it was a 44-second win. He went through him like a hot knife through butter. I kind of see the same thing happening here. I'm very confident that Moicano wins this fight. I think he does it inside the distance. Frankly, I think he gets it done in the first as soon as he gets this fight to the ground. I think Herbert's just going to be in a whole heap of trouble. The pick is Renato Moicano inside the distance. If you want to hedge it with Herbert by knockout. Thank you for watching my videos. Please like the video if you found it helpful. Please subscribe to my channel because I'll be doing these balls deep breakdowns regularly. I want to do at least 4 every week from now on. Catch me on Pub Sports Radio every Sunday, 6:15 Central Time for Stat Diggers, where we go balls deep into the statistics for the upcoming card on all the fights. And also check me out on DFS by the Numbers YouTube channel, where we do a main event breakdown for every single card. And we usually go balls deep, like 35-40 minutes into all the stats on the main event. And please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I appreciate all of you that watch, and good luck. Let's cash some tickets for UFC Vegas 30.